We could see like the origins of discovering kyber crystals and using that as like a tool. That would be freaking awesome. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And hey, this is a clip from our full episode, which you can check out on the channel or in the description. Now, back to the clip. James Mangold has been making the rounds with interviews promoting Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. So he was the director for that. But he's been asked a lot about Star Wars because he's going to be directing that big epic around the origins of the Force. He says this, quote, "Well, I've talked to Lucasfilm before and even worked a bit before on other projects, and I'm always interested in what's going on there and have friends who work on other Star Wars projects, but I understood that much of what they were doing was kind of continuing the saga forward. So when I mentioned to Kathy the idea that I had about going backwards, really far backward, I was surprised that it excited her and the other wonderful people who she works with at Lucasfilm. For me, it's about I want to be a part of the saga, but I also don't want to be holding so much lore in the air that they can hardly tell a story. And what I really wanted to do, what I told her, was just, can we make a kind of the 10 Commandments of the Force, you know? A kind of origin story of how the Force came to be known, understood, wielded, and harnessed. I think this right here is something that is very unique that James Mangold is going to have the ability to do.
For sure. What a great idea.
Because he is going to be creating an entirely new era that I assume will have books on, that I assume will have comics on.
Well, he potentially could be, like the new Dave Filoni.
Don't say that or Dave Filoni's going to kick out his project.
No. Yes.
I feel like George Lucas is God and then Dave Filoni's like Jesus in Star Wars.
Yeah, that works out.
Yeah. And then you have like Jon Favreau, who's like the Holy Spirit, the Trinity of Star Wars. And then James Mangold's coming and he's like the fallen
Moses.
Angel.
True. Yeah.
Trying to create his own Earth.
Oh, gosh. Needless to say, it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting times for Star Wars.
So I think this is very fascinating because something that this story is going to be building around is that origin of the Force, of that harnessing of the Force. And in Star Wars, we've seen mentions of it. In the Clone Wars, we saw the father, the son, and the daughter, which represent the different sides of the Force, the dark side, the light side, and then the balance in between being the father. So we have that example, but that's as close as we've come to like really expanding on the mysticism of the Force. And George Lucas in the prequels tried to make it more of a scientific thing with the midichlorians. And that's definitely coming from the line in Star Wars of it's in every living thing, it binds us, it holds us together. That phrase from Obi Wan. That's where James Mangold can come in, and I love that he's like, let's make the 10 Commandments of the Force. What are the people that discovered they have this attunement to the Force, and how do they set up the foundations of the Force? They could even get into the kind of severance of the light side and the dark side. Of more than likely, we'll have quote-unquote the gray Jedi in that foundation before you have like a destructive force of, I don't know, like some big moment that tears apart what these people are doing to create their society or religion, or what is that moment that kind of severs everything to where you have this example of the light side and the dark side.
I really am now fascinated about how he's going to tackle that.
Yeah.
Like when it's origins, it's so much of both because you're in it, and so it feels real and scientific, but at the same time, it's so new that it's so mystical, and it's so like, oh man.
But I think that's what's going to be fascinating is like, who are these people? It's 25,000 years before the prequels. It's this massive breadth of time. He has the opportunity to build on these foundations and create his own characters, create his own lore, create his own mysticism, create his own Force, really. If the Force is within every living thing already, there is no like origin point.
Right.
It's probably going to be like the origins of the Jedi or the Sith, like the origins of the people who learned to harness this power. So we haven't seen what James Mangold has been able to make with the Indiana Jones franchise, but he's successfully created a Lucasfilm project, which is huge. Looking back on the experience that James Mangold has, it's very interesting to see what he's done in the past, because he did 310 to Yuma, he did Walk the Line, he did Ford v Ferrari, which was very successful, and he did Logan, as well as the Wolverine. I think the Wolverine is a terrible movie, but I love it.
It's the good kind of trash.
Yeah. He can do these like really deep emotional storytelling.
It's going to be interesting to see him create something new.
Yeah.
In a space
That's what's so unique about this project.
Yes.
He's not working in, okay, this is set in between the sequels and the original trilogy.
And you have to include this character and this character and this character. No, there's none of that.
And I think that's where he can really shine as a storyteller and as a director. What does it look like for him to have free reign to create something entirely new?
With only like this North Star of where it has to end up.
Yeah,
like,
it has to feel like Star
able
Wars.
To push everything towards what we already know for Star Wars.
What does technology look like into the Star Wars universe?
Right.
That's going to be fascinating. It could be, we could see like the origins of discovering kyber crystals and using that as like a tool. That would be freaking awesome. Just imagine all the cool cosplays that we're going to get from this movie.
Gosh.
That's what I'm really looking forward to with this movie, is like the variety of storytelling, the variety of like openness that we won't be seeing in the Dave Filoni verse, in the Mandoverse. We won't be seeing it in like the new Daisy Ridley movie. We won't be seeing something like this in the Taika Waititi film. Like, they're playing in the sandbox, and James Mangold's like,
I'm gonna make something new.
I'm gonna make my own thing over here. It's like writing a fanfic versus writing something yourself. Like, that's what it feels like.
Yeah, it's almost like reverse fanfic.
Yeah, you're creating the fiction. And there could be other movies set around that same timeline. What does it look like for these variety of stories to be told, and who are we going to attract to either direct, star, write, illustrate? If we're looking at the comics, like, you can attract a completely different audience of creators to tackle this universe now.
It's exciting.